Welcome back to another episode of Rob and Ava's Ramble. It's been about a month since we've rambled.
Yep. Been traveling.
We traveled for about 3.5 weeks.
Yes.
And it's a good trip. We did a lot of camping, a lot of hiking, hanging out. We had some friends with us that were hanging out. My brother came along and hung out with us for a while. Another friend, another friend. Had a couple of people. Had a group of 5 of us. 5 of us.
Well, we had a
couple
core of
dogs.
3, and then one came for a couple nights, and then another one picked up later for a couple more nights.
So at the height, we had 5 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the most we had traveling kind of with us was 5 people, and we went to some expos, and you did a live podcast for your other podcast thing that's not this, and that was okay.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
Progress over perfection, Rob.
Yeah. Taught some classes at the expo. We did some stuff with that. So it was good times, good stuff. Had some, really, I really enjoyed the hiking. We've been doing more and more of that lately.
There were some nice hikes.
We potentially saved a life.
Did that.
We were out camping on a beach in Oregon. We'd been there, I think, for 2 nights. And we went out to go for a little bit of a walk on the beach.
Not a real long romantic walk, though.
No, we were all of us out just kind of. There was an inlet we wanted to walk down to.
Yeah.
And so our little gang of people we were traveling with, we took off down the beach to go check out this inlet. And we got about a quarter mile down the beach from. We were kind of camped up on this dune, and it was like you walk down the dune to the beach, and then we were walking, out and. Got about a quarter mile down, and my brother turned around and saw a side-by-side had rolled over. It was on its roof. So, I see this, I turn around, we all start running back that way. And as I get a little bit closer, I notice the driver get out, and he seemingly, I see him walking around. So I slow down to a walk, and, as he's kind of walking around, like more people are coming in that had been in the area, and I see people frantically moving around. I'm like, oh, something's still wrong. So I take off running.
I'll start running again.
Running again. So I get down there, and the first thing I hear is a man screaming.
Frantically.
Very frantically.
I was like, oh, wow.
And a lot of blood. So what had happened was they were racing down the beach in the side by side. I'm saying racing. I don't know. They were driving down the beach in side by side at some amount of speed. He goes into a tidal pool. There's a deep hole or something he hits. Rolls the side by side a couple times. So the side by side when we get there is on its roof. There's a man screaming who's still inside. He's strapped in. He's hanging upside down. His head's partially in the water.
Yeah, the tidal pool, it was about a foot deep.
Yeah, the tidal pool was probably a foot or so deep.
Yeah.
And it was big. It was a big tidal pool. It has probably several hundred feet long.
Yeah.
And maybe 40 feet wide or something. Yeah. So, but we get there, and there's just the blood. I mean, the blood, so much blood. I
don't think I've ever seen that much blood from a single human.
Yeah, so much blood. And the guy is basically in there screaming that he's losing too much blood and he's going to die.
Yeah.
So I kind of did a very quick assessment of the situation. I noticed that his, he's talking, obviously, so he's conscious, he's awake.
Very traumatized.
He's in shock, obviously. Yeah. He seems to have movement of his head, and normally in these situations, like, you don't want to move the person if you can help it, because you don't know what kind of injuries they might have, right? So, I'm kind of keeping this in the back of my mind, but at the same time, this guy's bleeding out, and like the amount of blood, it was just like, it was crazy. So I kind of made the executive call that I called all the men that had come in. I was like, we need to roll this thing back over into its wheels, because we can't, the guy's hanging upside down, his head's partially in the water. Like, there's just no way to deal with the situation. And so we roll this, we get some men, we push the side by side back over. And at this point, I can kind of clearly see now that, he's basically like severed the main artery in his arm. And So I whip off my shirt. I, take it and I apply pressure to the wound. I take his other hand and I'm telling him, keep pressure on that the best you can. Take off my belt. I loop my belt around, make a tourniquet out of it on his arm. And surprisingly, I was able to get the blood to slow. I mean, I'm apologizing to the guy what I'm doing because I know it had to be very, very painful. And probably in the moment, his endorphins were so high anyways, maybe he wasn't feeling it. But I'm like gouging this belt like hard into his skin, like trying to get it as tight as I can.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while this is happening and like I'm slowing the blood, I'm not stopping it. I'm like, I need a real tourniquet. And so our camp was just up the hill on the dune. And, one of the folks that's with us, goes racing up the dune on a quad.
Yeah.
That someone who had pulled in, helped in. They race him up there. He grabs our med kit, or his med kit, I think. I don't know. Somehow we ended up with like 3 med kits. I don't know where they all came from.
Well, I couldn't get ours because you had our keys in your pocket. So the 3 other people with us. And you were holding
the dogs. The people who were with
I had
us.
the dogs. But the 3 other people with us, like we all carry pretty comprehensive med kits. So
all
all 3 of them. We spend
a lot of time outdoors.
Yeah, all 3 of them took off in their own way. But Jared was the fastest because he got the quad ride.
He got the quad ride. So he gets up there. He comes back, rips the med kit open, hands me the tourniquet. I get the tourniquet on the guy's arm, take the belt off. I get the tourniquet. Tourniquet, much better tool for the situation, actually able to pretty much get the bleeding to stop.
Yeah.
So, that was a big relief. The gentleman is still very distraught. He's, now kind of like starting to complain that he's losing numbness. He's going to pass out.
Yeah.
Not losing numbness, getting numb. He's going to pass out. I'm just trying to calm him and assure him his arm is going numb. It could be restricted to blood flow. That's perfectly normal. It's a much better situation than him bleeding to death. And, and noted the time, because that's something you need to do with a tourniquet. Because you can only have that on there for so long before the limb becomes at jeopardy. So we noted the time. And he... just try to calm him down. He's screaming, just constantly screaming the whole time about it. He's gonna die. He's gonna pass out. He's gonna, he's yelling at his brother. I think his brother's name was Ronnie.
Yeah.
And he's like, Ronnie, you effing killed me.
Ronnie was driving.
Ronnie was driving. Yeah, I should make that clear. Ronnie was his brother, who was driving the side by side.
Yeah. And, who came up? I mean, he didn't look to have
any
injuries.
He did not seem to be injured.
No.
Yeah. So he's yelling at the brother that he had killed him. And I'm like, whoa, like nobody's dead yet, man.
Yeah,
Don't give up on me here. So,
yeah. In addition to wrangling the 2 dogs that were concerned because their owners were kind of helping out and not beside them, I was trying to call the driver over and I was like, now's probably not the time. We need him to be calm. He's not rational. Yeah.
Just try to get him to stop arguing. So, and I basically just, somebody was calling 911 as we were just arriving on the scene.
That's all they were doing.
That's all they were doing. Yeah.
They were not reacting.
Nobody was really doing anything other than calling 911. And I, you always second guess yourself, but like, I'm fairly well convinced if we hadn't, that guy was going to bleed out in a matter of minutes. Like there was just so much blood. It was an insane amount.
I feel like the ambulance got there faster than I had anticipated, but not fast enough to keep somebody from bleeding.
It was like 25 minutes from when they were called. So basically, got a tourniquet on the guy, got the bleeding stopped, just trying to keep him calm. Just kept assuring him help was on the way. Like he needed to stay with us, And they showed up. He was still in the side-by-side. We didn't want to move him. I mean, once we got it rolled over and we could address the wound, that was good enough by me. No need to move him anymore. But they attempted to open the door in a side-by-side, and I hadn't even noticed how damaged the side-by-side was. So they couldn't. They had to get the jaws of life out, and they cut the door off. And, basically they took over. We just stepped away, and they carted him off in the ambulance, and we don't know what happened.
No,
that was it. The brother, I didn't actually pay attention. I don't know if they drove the side-by-side away or if they towed it away. I'm not sure, but a side-by-side disappeared. The brother disappeared. He didn't go in the ambulance with his brother.
No. Which I found shocking in hindsight. Like this is a gentleman who also rolled several times in this side-by-side.
Him any,
No.
Well, we believe there was some alcohol involved.
Yes.
You know, we didn't see anybody drinking, so I can definitively say that, but the signs were there.
Yeah.
And, you know, by the way, not a great situation for this gentleman who is bleeding out because alcohol also thins the blood, which doesn't help, right? So I don't know. I think the gentleman who was driving was...
yeah, I think it was avoiding medical
attention.
Was
avoiding any interactions with any authorities or medical personnel.
Yeah, same.
So, but yeah, so that was kind of crazy. Kind of the craziness happened on the trip. But other than that, you know, pretty good trip. We did some hiking, did some camping, did lots of camping, fair amount of hiking. On our way home, we kind of left the group we were traveling with in Oregon, up in Tillamook State Forest, I think we were.
Yeah.
And Tillamook, not Tillamook. I want to say it's not muck, it's mook.
Mook.
Tillamook.
Just like the cheese.
Just like the cheese, yeah. And we made our way out to Nevada, and we headed to Great Basin National Park. We're not big national park people. We do spend a lot of time outdoors. I mean, we camp, you know, at least 150 nights a year, if not more, quite a bit. So, you know, we're out pretty frequently, and we try to avoid national parks because there's just so many people, and there's so many great places that aren't national parks that if you know where to look for them. So, but we wanted to go to Great Basin, never been there, and it's surprisingly not that crowded. So we got there, we camped there one night. And then we did a little hike. We headed up to a glacier that sits at the base of Wheeler Peak. So we hiked up to this glacier that was about 11,000 feet. And then we had Wheeler Peak back there that was about 13,000 feet. So about 2,000 feet above the glacier where we were. Had the entire area there to ourselves, which was pretty cool. I mean, that's completely unexpected for a national park.
Yeah.
And the temperatures were great. It was awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It's probably one of my favorite hikes of the trip. Started driving back home. Our daughter, who had been taking care of some dogs that belonged to our other daughter, who were watching, even though we were gone for 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, we were watching.
We were watching, yeah. Our middle child was actually watching them. Calls us and says, "Hey, your house is super hot. Is it supposed to be?" And I was like, "No." I think I turned the air down to like 78 when we left or something, and the house was like 90.
Yeah.
So, and it's hot here, right? I mean, today it was 117 here at the house, and I think officially the temperature was 115, but it was 117 here. And you know, so basically what had happened is the GFI had tripped, and so I was able to walk my daughter through getting the GFI turned back on, but that was only a couple hours before we got home. And so by the time we got home, it was still like 88 degrees. And it took the house almost a whole day in these temperatures to kind of cool back down to something, you know, livable for us. It was a hot night's sleep.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of been unpacking, and you've been getting some things cleaned up around the house here, and we're getting kind of reset. We're going to leave again in like 3 weeks for about another 3, maybe 4 weeks on that trip.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out how to kind of do this on the road.
Maybe on this next trip.
Maybe on the next trip, yeah. I think we have the technology and capabilities to be able to do it. It won't be this, you know,
fancy.
It won't be this fancy, but I think we can still make it work.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we need to try to work that out. But hey, we're gonna be home for like 3 weeks before that happens, before we leave again. So we'll keep doing this.
Yeah, I'm gonna sneeze.
You're gonna sneeze?
Maybe.
Don't sneeze right into the mic. It'll sound awful. There you go.
Okay.
Not blowing a couple people who listen to this their ears out.
Right. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, hey, so that's enough about our trip. We've been rambling on about that for 15 minutes. Let's
tired today.
You're tired. Well, it's getting late. It's it's almost 6:45 here. You know, we're old, so we're.
I worked hard today. I was busy.
All right, so let me find some stuff here on Twitter. So I didn't do a whole lot of social mediating. I don't know what we call that.
Not mediating.
It's not mediating. Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of social media time while we were gone, but I did do some. And man, God, just so much stuff like happened on Twitter. Like, I mean, I don't even know where to start. There's so many things we could talk about. But there was a gentleman that I was involved or engaged in some friendly conversation with. His name is Mike Lawson, and I told him that the next time we got together to ramble here on our podcast, we're gonna talk about this topic. So
okay.
So let me just kind of give you Mike, I apologize if I misstate or misunderstand anything you're saying here. But I'm gonna try to do it justice and just kind of see. So. Mike basically, said here that men were never going to stop screwing whores, but girls might stop being whores if you tell them they can have a family. And I had kind of asked a follow-up question to that, which is like, well, are men are I don't want to say men are responsible for like the whoredom of women.
Sure.
But I'm asking, are men being leaders? So, I said, are men leading women to be whores by allowing themselves to be manipulated into sleeping with them? Could men, simply refuse to sleep with them as an act of leadership? And, Mike said back, men don't need to be manipulated into sleeping with anyone. Most of us barely need to be asked. We like sex. We will have 100% of the sex women allow us to have. And so, I'm asking, like, are women too weak? I mean, are men too weak to say no to sex? And, I said I disagree with that, if that's what we're saying. Like, I don't think men are too weak. Not saying they're doing it, but they're capable. And then he says, men don't have any incentive to say no, unless they fear hell, which few men do, or he is committed to a woman he feels is worthy of his loyalty, which few men are. And he's saying, why should a man say no? And I'm not saying, I don't think, in reading all this, I don't think Mike is advocating for this or saying that he believes this is right. So I want to make sure I'm clear about that. I think he's just saying it's the way it is.
Sure.
So,
right. And we come from that position a lot where we just talk about how things are. And
how things are. I mean, how things should be is often different than how things actually are.
Yeah.
So that was a topic I thought we could maybe kick around a little bit. So, let me just pose the question, are men partly responsible for the, what we call whoredom of women? So, if women are out there, and I don't even really know how we're defining whore.
Yeah, I think it's a sliding scale based on.
Yeah, I mean, some men might say a woman who's slept with 3 people is a whore. Some men might say it's 10, 20, 40, 100. I don't know what the number is, but so I don't really know how we're defining that. But regardless of how we define it, how are women being put in a position to be labeled a whore unless men are sleeping with the women? So, should men complain about something that they're contributing to?
I mean, I think if you're out there, quote, making whores, you can't complain about their, quote, being whores.
Right. So if you're kind of after this trad wife life, which we would, I mean, that's kind of the life that you and I have lived. I mean, we've been married 30 plus, not married quite 30, almost 30 years.
Almost 30
We've
years.
been together 30 plus years.
Yeah.
We went to high school prom together. That's how long we've been together. But, so, I would say yes. I mean, traditional, kind of what I would call the natural order of the world, and living in a relationship, in a married relationship that way is the way to go. So, like, I totally would advocate for that.
Yeah.
For myself, or based on my own experience, I should say. But, so if a man is seeking that, but then he's contributing to the body counts of women.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, takes two to tango, but one person has to be the bigger person and step away from the cycle.
Yeah. So Mike, what I think he's saying is that men won't say no.
Mike doesn't have standards. Well, I'm sure Mike has standards, but that statement, they will take 100% of the sex that they're offered. It sounds like
you don't have
there's
standards.
No standards there, but I don't think that is
something got me.
An actual true statement, because everybody I know that's single has standards.
Yeah. So maybe a more accurate statement would be men will take 100% of the sex that's offered to them from women who meet their standard.
Yes.
And I would even say that's probably not true. I know it certainly hasn't been true of me. I certainly have standards, and just because if I found a girl attractive who is willing to have sex, that doesn't mean it's going to happen because I'm in a
Who are these women?
Oh yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Sometimes you're pointing them out to me.
Yeah,
because I'm really bad at kind of understanding flirting sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I don't, just because I found a woman attractive who was like, who checked all my boxes on what I have, whatever standards I have, who was offering me sex, like, I'm still going to say no. So, like, I would not say it's 100%. So even if we define it as 100%.
Yeah.
Of your standard, it's definitely not 100%, because not 100% of the women are going to meet your standards.
Right.
And then all men do have some sort of standard.
Yeah.
They're not going to, just because we were out camping recently, this is on my mind. Like, if there's a chick that hasn't showered in 10 days, I don't care how attractive she is.
That's a no-go.
Probably not meeting my standard.
Yeah.
So,
even after a campground shower, it still could be a no.
It has to be like a good shower. Yeah.
Anyways.
So anyway, I don't agree that men have sex with will have 100% of the sex they're offered.
Yeah.
I could maybe get more on board with saying, some men might have 100% of the sex they're offered from women that meet their standard, but it's not 100, I don't think it's 100%.
No, I don't think so either. I guess you really need to nail down, like, why are people having sex that aren't married?
Well, because sex is enjoyable. We all get that, right?
Yeah.
Sex is enjoyable. I understand that. But, like, in what context, right? Where I'm trying to struggle with, like, just understanding this whole thing is if a woman... Like, if I don't know what your ideals are. Maybe your ideals are you don't ever plan to get married. You don't want a committed relationship. You just want to sleep with as many women as you can. And in that case, I would say, okay, I disagree with you. I don't think that's a very good, going to lead you to a good place.
Right.
But I would at least understand your position of, well, I'm going to sleep with every woman who meets my standards, who's willing to sleep with me.
Right.
But if that's not your goal, like, if you do, I hear a lot of men, or see a lot of men talking about, like, they want these trad wives. They're looking for these virgin trad wives, ideally, or very low body count trad wives who want to live the traditional life. And if that's what you're after, but then you're still continuing to sleep with whatever woman in the meantime until you find that chick, if you're going to sleep with every woman who offers you sex, like, you're contributing to the problem. Like, you're that's somebody's future wife you're sleeping with. That's somebody else. That's some other man out there who wanted the trad wife, low body count wife. And you're sleeping with her, dude. So, like, you're contributing to the problem. And then your wife who's out there, some other dude's sleeping with her, right?
Yeah.
Making it harder for you to find that person. So, like, are men... Should men be trying to take a leadership position in this and say, yeah, you're cute, you're sexy, I'd love to sleep with you, but no, I'm not, because I'm thinking of the bigger picture for myself and my fellow brother who, is out there that I don't know, who's looking for a wife. I'm not going to contribute to her body count or,
Right.
you know, her decline of her morals because.
So the super tough question here, you claim to be a Christian, correct?
Yeah.
I'm just laying the groundwork. Do you believe in sex outside of marriage? So should they be having sex at all? Premarital?
Yeah. I mean, I think the traditional view on that is no. You know, there's other views though. I mean, there's some other guy on X that I've seen some of his stuff, and this guy is like a total polygamist. But I mean, I guess in his mind, I guess that's not sex outside of marriage. He just has a bunch of wives. So,
Well, yeah. I mean,
I guess that's.
I mean, and not that I'm for polygamy, but in their mindset, they are spiritually married.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess you couldn't really
Yeah.
technically call that outside of marriage. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it leads anywhere good.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I do
Yeah.
think it's a reality. I'm not saying it's not a reality. I get it's a reality. I mean, you and I had sex before we were married, right?
Stop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did.
I know.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I understand that's the reality.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, also like, but in that context, like in my mind, you know, like we were committed.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I intended to, you know, be with you as long as we could be together. Right. So.
Well, and I think that's kind of where I was going with that is, you know, there's people out there and their goal is just to sleep with people.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably some stuff I don't understand about the red pill, but I mean, to me, that seems like a big part of this whole red pill thing is how to woo women to get as many women to sleep with you as you can.
Yeah.
But then also you want the trad wife life.
No, I don't think so. I think like you can't have both. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
You're either out there trying to sleep with a bunch of women or you're out there trying to find your life partner.
Right.
So, and I think that's where dating comes into play, right? Like dating, you should be getting together with that person and like trying to figure out, are you compatible on all the levels that you need to be compatible on to do life together?
Yeah. And ideally, you wouldn't be sleeping with that person until there was some kind of, you know,
Right.
reasonable commitment and a minimum that you were actually trying to, you know, wife that person or husband that person.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just adding to a problem that you're complaining about.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't want the wife who slept with 100 dudes. Yes, I agree. 100%. Yes. Don't want that.
Yeah.
But you're adding to that problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's what needs to change is more like traditional dating views.
Yeah. So, I mean, will that actually happen? I don't know. I mean, you and I, obviously, have been together a long time. I'm sure the dating world has changed. Like, I'm sure there's a lot about dating we don't understand, but we do have some experience with what it takes to kind of have a long-term, you know, married, happy relationship.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think from that point of view, I just think about young people kind of entering into a marriage and the things that are going to set you up for success. And, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sex definitely changes things. And like when you're dating, right? Like it's a whole new layer of complication.
Yeah.
So I think it makes it harder for people. Like dating, you should, you know, you're not married. You are just sort of in this like trial phase, if you will.
Yeah.
And so it should be less complicated, right? Like that's why you should keep sex out of it. Because then like if you decide this isn't the person for me for the rest of my life, it should be easy to kind of walk away.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think that's the ultimate goal of dating is to find out. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of just, I don't know, a lot of, I mean, we touched on it a minute ago, but like, I mean, and Mike kind of said this in his post too, that, you know, if people don't fear hell, I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, I don't, you know, we don't subscribe to a version of Christianity that God is threatening us with hell. I don't think that's what's going on there.
No.
But that's another whole topic. But but regardless, what I would say is, if in a loving relationship with God, where you desire to live within the natural order that God has put forth, which is going to give you the best life, you're going to live inside of certain boundaries and not a lot of this degeneracy that's going on, right? And I think about, I don't know what the fix is for these young people. I mean, I think did Hawk Tua, that happened while we were out on our trip, right?
It did.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I mean, it was only like 4 weeks ago now. We've been home. It's been about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were gone, 3.5? We've been home for a couple of days. I don't know, somewhere between 3.5 to 4 weeks.
It's all a blur.
And I think that whole thing happened while we were gone.
It did.
And so I mean, this is like this is the role model. I don't know. I mean, well, that's what I'm asking. So like, I mean, she's like, I mean, some people are like standing her up as like, as if like this is what men want. And okay, I mean, do they? Because doesn't sound like the trad wife. I mean, maybe there's something I didn't understand about that, but I think the context of the whole thing was the guy was asking her like, you're dating men, and like, what's the one thing that you do that drives men crazy? And she talks about the Hawk Tua, but like, it wasn't in the context of like, what's the thing you do that drives your husband crazy, or like, like, and now this woman's being celebrated for that. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah.
So,
Same.
like, why, like, where, like, well, I guess I know why, because we're just this. It's just insane. Like some of the, I mean, do people really care about God's design? I mean, some people do. We do.
Yeah.
But maybe a lot of people don't. Maybe that's ultimately why, right? Because it's just people don't hold those values or care about how God's natural order of the world is, and so they're just going to do what seems right to them.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really brought up in the church. I didn't come to know the church until we got together.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it the church. No God. I mean,
yes, but I mean, I really like. Most people get to know God through the church, I guess is where I was going with that.
You were not raised in church. Yes.
No.
I was. You were not.
Yeah.
I was kind of.
Yeah. I mean, and so in fairly short order, we left traditional church, but we still are Christians.
You and I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say fairly short order. I mean, we were attending church together when we were dating, and then we got married and attended church for many years.
Yeah.
Many years.
But I think my point being, though, like some of these young people come from kind of my position where God wasn't really forefront in family conversations or anything like that. So are they just like, have they just not come into it yet? Like the Nala Ray chick. I mean, she's a Christian now.
Yeah, that's what she says. I know a lot of people have a problem with that.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, is there, like, so some of these young people are definitely like not following the natural order, but is that because they just haven't been awoken to it yet?
Yeah. Well, and is the church doing good or is the church doing harm?
Yeah.
That's like another whole topic that we could probably talk about. I mean, you kind of alluded to it. I mean, we don't go to church anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, love God, believe in God. I will be glad to give you every reason why I believe in God. I will be glad to tell you plenty of stories in my life where I've seen God work. But
sorry.
I just, there's a lot of problems in the church, and churches are, shame generating machines. And if anybody's looking for a book to read, one that was pretty impactful on me was a book written by Wayne Jacobson, which is called "So You Don't Want to Go to Church Anymore." And I mean, it's a fiction book, but it speaks a lot of truths and kind of woke me up to some things and seeing some things in the own church we were going to. And we've tried a lot of churches, and I'm not saying there aren't good churches out there. I'm sure somewhere out there are churches that maybe are doing it right, but we've been to a lot of churches and I can't really find any that aren't kind of shame generating machines, which is the very thing that, that Jesus died on the cross for, right? Was to rescue you from your shame.
Yeah.
And why are churches heaping that shame right back on people? So another whole kind of rabbit hole to go down.
But my point in that was you mentioned God ruling through fear and how somebody some people feel like the fear of hell and stuff like that.
That's what Mike said.
Yeah, having not come up in the church, I didn't have that. Yes. And I don't I have a very unique perspective.
Yeah. You didn't grow up with the pastor pounding on the pulpit, threatening hellfire and brimstone if you don't, go work in a nursery.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've never really, God is just a God of love for me. I never knew that side of it.
Yeah.
I saw a little bit of it as we were going through churches, but it never really stuck.
Yeah. Well, you didn't get kind of indoctrinated into that view as early. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of churches that don't really teach the cross accurately, I would say.
Well, I think I was fortunate in that.
Yeah.
In that
so
perspective.
From kind of that. So yeah. I don't know, where were we going with that whole thing?
The young people just not being awoken to the love of God yet. And so the natural order just they're following the world still.
Yes. And then when they do end up in churches, then they kind of end up in this whole shame generating machine.
Well, hopefully not.
Hopefully not, but it is the reality of a lot of churches.
Yeah, this is true.
So, yeah.
But yeah, and then I brought up the Nala Ray chick. And so yes, she, by a lot of people's standards, did a lot of not so tasteful things. But now she's a Christian. She's got a husband. She's come around. So I think some of these people will come around. The problem is the consequences of your actions don't go away.
Yeah. I don't think, I did obviously see a little bit of that playing out on Twitter. She was kind of, coming around to those views.
Yeah.
And I think most of the people I saw talking about her were saying, that's great. I'm glad she's finding Christ. You still have to live with the consequences of what you did. And I would say, you shouldn't be shaming her more than you shame anybody else. That's not what we're called to do.
No.
But I could also understand. I understand she recently got married or something.
That's what I heard.
You told me that. Yeah. But I'm glad for her, but I think there's a lot of men out there that would, I know I'd be one of them. I'd be like, yeah, you're cute and all. No, not touching that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So glad for her that she found somebody, but yeah, there are consequences.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Yeah. So, good for people that are finding God and hopefully they're being rescued from their shame and the beliefs they had that led them to maybe do a lot of the things they did. The unfortunate reality is, there is some consequence to that.
Yeah. So I think, circling that back to our initial conversation, I think some of the men who are out there, quote, making horrors will one day wake up and kind of be a little responsibility for that.
Yeah. But then will that be communicated to younger men in a way that they can understand it? Obviously, the sex drive in men is very, very high. I get that.
Yeah.
I'm a man. Believe me, I get it. Yeah. But are men going to be willing to put aside their own desires or can they steer those drives into other things to kind of help right the ship?
Well, getting back to one of our other earlier rambles, if we can help fix the marital situation and men are more willing to engage in marriage, I think that will naturally help.
Yeah, which there's a lot of stuff that has to happen.
Yeah,
for that, some legal changes. Yeah, it almost feels a little hopeless at times.
Yeah, it's just a big cycle.
Yeah,
men don't want to get married, but they want to have sex. So here we go around and around.
Yeah. Well, my fix for that is get government out of marriage, is what I say. Spiritual marriage. I'd be way more concerned about God's view of what you're doing than I would be about the government caring what you're doing. So, like, why do we need marriage licenses? And, that would... I understand when there's kids involved. I mean, there are some protections that need to be put in place, right, for kids. Like, you can't have a guy knocking a chick up and then walking out of her life, leaving her with 2 kids and all that. Like, I get that. I mean, there are some things that you get, like, that they're just realities of the world. But, when there's not kids involved, why do you need the government?
Yeah.
So anyway,
we don't have time for that tonight.
No, I know. We got stuff.
That's a big conversation.
So we've been rambling for about 40 minutes here.
Okay.
Any other topics you want to talk about, or?
Modesty.
Modesty.
Do you want to tackle modesty?
In what context?
Do you think it's subjective?
Yes. Again, in what context? I mean, I would say generally yes. Yes.
Yeah. So like I follow the Transformed Wife, and she posted a picture of herself in a sleeveless dress.
Okay. This is while we were on our trip?
Yes.
Okay.
And she said she didn't think it was modest, but it was the only sleeveless dress that she had. And she's big on telling women that they need to be modest, and she'll like strike down certain things. So, am I being immodest, showing my shoulders?
I don't think so.
Okay, I don't either.
It's 117 degrees here.
Yeah, this is true.
Not in our house.
No, but, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. That just bothers me.
That women are like basically like shaming other women.
Yes.
For what they wear. Yeah. Well, I don't really know what to say about it from the context of a single man. I guess from a marriage point of view, I would say if your husband doesn't feel that you're being immodest, then it's okay.
Right.
Right. I mean, maybe your husband has a misunderstanding of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, but you as the wife, if you are going to be, obedient to your husband, and your husband says, wear that, I'm fine with that, then I feel like that kind of absolves you of that responsibility. Now, maybe your husband needs to learn a thing or two.
Sure.
And if the wife said, or if your husband said, hey, I think that's immodest, don't wear that out of the house, and the wife said, I'm going to wear it out anyways, well, then that's on the wife, right? But like,
right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's subjective. So
yeah.
I don't, yeah.
I have a hard time with that because the Bible doesn't really define modesty. It just uses the word.
It uses the word, right.
But it doesn't define it.
Right. So what does it mean? Yeah.
How does a singular person get to define that and interpret it?
And it's probably it's subjective to the culture. I mean, let me ask you this question. So in our culture, we might say if a woman's walking around, without a top on, she's being immodest, right? I mean, I think most people would hold that definition.
Sure.
You're showing too much skin. Your breasts are hanging out.
Yeah.
Well, what about African tribes?
Yeah.
So do African tribes, like in that culture, that's the norm. Again,
what about breastfeeding mamas?
Right. Or that's, I mean, it's like people talk about Africa hot, which it feels like here right now.
Yeah.
But and there's no women walking around without their tops on here.
No.
But, at least that I've seen. but in these other cultures and these African tribes and these things, so would you say those women are sinning? Are they being immodest?
No, because it's culturally acceptable.
It's their culturally acceptable thing, right?
Yeah.
So like, I don't think you can pick up a Bible and go hit someone over the head and say, you're being immodest.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when, where, in what culture, and like, can you actually call it a sin if it's okay on this part of the world and in this culture, and you're saying it's not okay in this part of the world in this culture. Like, I don't know that God has really defined it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think we should be taking it to the point of like they should be yelling at women about, I mean, I think there's conversation to be had with young women to say like, maybe you should think about dressing in this particular way for, XYZ reason, or, for a husband to say that to his wife, or anything. Like, I'm totally fine with all that. But, to accuse someone of it being a sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels icky.
Feels pretty icky. Yeah. I don't agree with that.
Anyways, that's all I got.
I don't know if I have all the context, but based on the context I have, I don't think I agree with it.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. It's been 45 minutes, ish. And, yeah, I got to do some stuff. I need to eat.
I need a better sleep tonight.
You better sleep tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't get the best sleep last night.
Tired today.
I got up well before you this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need more sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I was up working out, doing my thing, then going to work.
I'm a professional sleeper.
Yeah. Well, I envy your ability to sleep sometimes.
Yeah.
Although last night you must not have slept that well.
I didn't. I was up in the middle of the night for a couple hours.
Yeah, but then when you finally got to sleep, like, you just slept in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you have that ability to do that. It's one of the nice things of the trad wife life.
Yeah.
Is that you don't, we don't require you to work for income. So you can, if you need to sleep in, you can sleep in. And all our kids are grown and out of the house. There's no kids to take care of. There are 2 dogs here right now that we're watching for our one daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little salty that I had to get up and deal with them alone this morning, but
I would have. You got up and left me. I would have gotten
because
up.
I let you sleep.
Yeah,
I know, it's fine. But yeah, normally the dogs aren't here, and if you need to sleep in, that's fine. Sleep as long as you want. I'm good with it.
The dogs.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for checking this out. If you checked it out, and we're gonna keep doing this until it's not fun anymore. I don't know. Still fun. Still good.
Yeah, still fun. We're just having the conversations we normally have, but now we're just sitting in a room.
Yeah, talking to each other on mics and sharing it publicly for some weird reason. So, all right, cool. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.